class of many moons ago. I'll just leave it at that, from Cerritos College, but a host of our monthly talk here. And so first thing I have to do, I have to apologize. I know normally you're used to seeing myself and our guest on here on video. It's not that I don't want you to see my wonderful face, but I know we're just trying to figure some things out here on Zoom, and having some issues in terms of getting my video going. So today I'm gonna really just go back to my Cerritos College radio hat days, where no one could see me anyways when I was at Cerritos College and doing interviews over the air. So same thing here, we'll do that. But our guest is who you can see here and who we're really excited to have. And so before I formally introduce Mazen to everybody here, I have a couple of housekeeping stuff. If you have any questions that you want to submit, you can go ahead and do those through the chat or through the Q&A section in Zoom. I promise that we will get to them. If we don't get to them right away, we do get to them eventually. I know that Matthew Harms, our Director of Alumni Relations, is on here as well. So he will be observing that and taking a look at the questions, and of course popping in some questions. And I see we have Jennifer on there. Hey Jennifer. And so it's great to see some familiar faces on here. So with that said, we'll get started. And so our guest today, some of you may know Mazen Nabulsi, and so I'll tell you a little bit about him, and I'll let him kind of dive a little deeper into his background. But Mazen is an alum of, can I share what year? 92, right? Is that okay?
That's fine,
You're at 92 of Cerritos College. He's been a member of the Cerritos College Foundation Board of Directors since 2015. In 2017, Mazen established the Max Freefield Leadership and Community Service Scholarship at the Cerritos College Foundation for students who are actively involved in community service or student government and exhibit strong leadership skills. Always exciting to hear. While Mazen was at Cerritos College, he served as the Associate Student Body President, representing and advocating on behalf of the student body community. As president, he advocated and lobbied successfully to upgrade and expand library facilities and helped to prevent the elimination of summer school during the state's 1991 financial budget crisis. So that's amazing. Mazen went on to receive his Bachelor's of Arts degree from Pepperdine University in '94. He later on got his law degree from California Western School of Law in San Diego. And so and finally, I will mention that he has had a variety of positions in politics and law. He worked for the office of President Ronald Reagan as an intern assistant to the public affairs coordinator. He also worked as a contract attorney with the San Diego Department of Child Support Services. And he operated the Nabulsi law firm for almost 12 years. Currently right now, and since 2015, Mazen has worked as a real estate associate broker for 24-hour real estate in Downey. The most interesting thing I will say about Mazen, as we were chatting here before we came on, is he's a world traveler. He's visited over 40 countries, speaks several languages, including Arabic and Spanish. And so we're going to pick his brain a little bit about that because he has some good stories, I'm sure. But Mazen, welcome. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor and a privilege.
Yeah, it's great to have you. I know we're going to have a good conversation. You know, one of the things we love to do here is sometimes we have students here, new alums, and folks that will come back and watch these. And so we really want to connect with them in terms of your journey from Cerritos and talk a little bit about that and to where you are today. And I'm sure it's exciting. It's not always linear, as we know, so we'd love to hear some of that. But before we do that, you were telling me about your most recent trip that you just got back from this summer. Why don't you tell us about that? Because I think it's interesting and exciting. Where were you at not too long ago?
I just got back from Peru. I lived in a tribal community. And you travel to Lima, then to another city. Then you walk 45 minutes into the Amazonian jungle. And then all of a sudden a community arises of tribal people who live as a community. And I lived there for 9 days, ate with them, a lot of vegetarian food. And it was really an interesting experience because I did everything that they would typically do. I did something called ayahuasca. I'm not sure if many people know what ayahuasca is, but it's a natural form of, I'm going to sound like I'm a drug user, but it's LSD, but it's a natural form where our Western culture would classify it as a drug. They classify it as a medicine. And I will tell you, I after using it, trying it, and you're supervised and everything like that, it is probably one of the most life-changing experience that you will experience using it. it's not habit forming or anything like that. It's just something that the cultures, the tribal communities, the Shibote tribe, they use it, and it helps to give you a lot of clarity, and kind of cleanse your mind of a lot of any mental pathways or blocks that you may have. It's a life-changing experience, but never would I thought that I would have done that type of experience, because normally you travel, you want to go see the Eiffel Tower, you want to go see Machu Picchu, but to go live with the tribal community and experience that culture was life-changing and eye-opening.
So I got to ask you, I've never done anything like that, but if someone out there, someone like myself wanted to, like you said, to take that route and stay with a tribe, how did you do that? How'd you get them? How do you find that and experience involved in?
I have a friend who is a big believer in plant medicine, and he's been trying to get me to try this for so long, and I was opposed to it. I don't take drugs. I don't do drugs, but kept trying to convince me it was medicine, it was life healing. And the more research that I did on it, I finally agreed to it. So he takes a group of 15 people about 3 times a year.
Oh, wow.
To experience this. And the food is so clean and just vegetarian. I lost weight, a lot of hiking. We were with the medicine man, and he would show us, he's been studying plants since he was 9 years old, but he could literally walk into the jungle and he could say, this plant is good for diabetes. This plant is good for eczema or psoriasis. And just shows you how plants are treated in those countries where we focus more on prescription drugs. They believe more in nature and natural methods and techniques. So eye-opening, very eye-opening.
So you were there for 9 days, and so was there a moment where you said, "Oh gosh, what did I get myself into"? There's had to be at least one moment.
Yes, yeah. The first day I tried the ayahuasca. I will just tell you a little bit about it. All of a sudden, your brain, you have the highest form of clarity and focus. And within like 30 minutes, you start to see geometrics. And then everything becomes very colorful. And this is done at night, and the room is completely dark. And it's almost like there's a mirror to your brain. And it was described to me as an inward journey. And in the beginning, I saw family members. I saw my mom and my dad and my siblings who have since passed. Then as time went on, I received like a lot of wisdom. You know, that little voice that we hear all the time telling us things that we completely ignore because we're so distracted. That voice comes in very loud and clear, and it gave me a lot of answers to things that I was searching for in my life. But it's a scary experience because you feel a complete loss of control. But if you just go with it and just be open to the life journey and the things that you see, it's healing. And I didn't want to do it again, but we were given 2 more attempts to do it, and I did 2 more attempts, and I got a lot of answers. I wrote about 8 pages of notes of things that a lot of clarity that I got on things that I was searching for. Yeah, about 8 pages of notes. It was amazing.
Well, I'm sure we could spend a lot of time. That sounds like an exciting experience, Mazen. So I had to ask about that. And so let's take it back to Cerritos College days, right? And I'll ask you what I ask most folks. You know, what led you to Cerritos College? And tell us a little bit about that.
You know, like most teens, we're uncertain about our career and our choices. And in my opinion, community college system is one of the best kept secrets. There are so many offerings, and unfortunately there is a stigma with community colleges that they're second rate, but I think that is changing, especially with a lot of student debt. People are accumulating, going straight to the 4-year schools, and I think the numbers of students who are transferring from community colleges to 4-year universities have been astounding, amazing. And so people have begun to rethink community colleges. And I came to Cerritos College uncertain as to what direction I wanted to move in. And it's kind of scary because, you know, you come from a high school where life is pretty much structured for you. Your classes are structured. And then you come to class and you've got to create your own structure. And I did. And the offerings are all there. It's basically what you make out of the experience. And Cerritos College has so much to offer. I mean, we teach everything from how to ride a motorcycle to accounting, professional positions, transferring to four-year universities. I mean, we have it all. We have it all.
You know, what's amazing is, it's funny because when I look at your bio and what you did back then, and here we are several years later, you're still involved in the community, right? You're the student that you were back then is now shaped you into this professional, but that still is very mindful of the community and giving back. And so, you know, what attracted you to student government and getting involved when you were at Cerritos?
You know, you hear a lot of people, you know, sometimes share their perspective on the world, their dislikes about the world or their communities. And really the only way to make change is to get involved and to be a part of that change. And, you know, I found that Cerritos College had one of the best leadership programs in the country. And even when I attended events out like in Washington, D.C., senators, Congress people, events that I attended, people had heard of Cerritos College, and we were well ranked in their minds as to how well our education was at the college. And you know, I have to say that the teachers and the faculty and the staff, their involvement with students were not just relegated to the classrooms, but outside of the classrooms. And I would always take advantage of office times of faculty members and discuss with them opportunities and careers and internships. And, you know, more than likely, if you're in the teaching profession, you're there to help people and to help students. And the faculty and the staff were just generous with their advice and helping me, especially as a teenager and not really being certain as to what direction I want to move in. Very helpful. I mean, everything from writing letters of recommendation, introducing you to other people who may be able to help you get positions or internships of that sort.
So eventually you went on to Pepperdine, you're in your bachelor's degree, you went to law school. And at what point did you say, you know, because I'm seeing a pattern, obviously, right? You were engaged, you're involved in the community, then on campus, then you studied law, and I know that you've been involved ever since. That, you know, that's always such a big decision, right? Both in investment in time and finances when someone decides I'm going to go on to law school or graduate school in general. What led you to law school and then practicing eventually?
I went to law school because I thought it was a career that I wanted to do full time. And I did law for a good number of years. But I found as time went on that, and I think this is reflective of any career that you choose, there's always a personality component involved in any career. Like if you don't like kids, you're not going to be a great teacher. If you don't like the public, you're not going to be a good customer service representative. And I found that I enjoyed law because it gave me the opportunity to help people. Our legal system is very complex and very overwhelming and sometimes very discouraging. And I've always found that public service is something I've enjoyed. And so having the opportunity to help people navigate through the legal system, and it's sometimes life-changing depending on what the circumstances of their legal issues are, that's what led me into law. But eventually I would leave law and I would get into real estate, and that was another journey. And doing real estate.
So, and we'll touch on that in a second. So I know, and for folks that we may have on here who are interested, because we always had, you know, I've worked at colleges all my career, for those that know me, and that seems to be when you work with undergraduate students, and law is always, you know, very attractive. And I've worked with a lot of students say, oh, I want to be a lawyer, I want to get into law. And then once they get into a JD program or something, I've seen a lot of them say, oh, that's maybe not for me. Or once they intern at a firm. And so it's not uncommon, especially in that industry, that folks will just, you know, they'll get their feet wet and maybe it's not for them. For some folks, it's all of them. But for what does someone need to know, in your opinion, if you're going to, you know, complete the sentence, so to speak, if you're going to get into law, you need to know X. What would they need to know?
Yes, you have to be very well versed in communicating, speaking, and writing. Because law is, at the end of the day, about persuasion, whether you're persuading a judge or you're persuading a jury. And it's so important to be able to learn how to engage. And you find that a judge or a jury they're reading you, they're looking at you, and they're looking for your credibility, your sincerity, your honesty, and being able to communicate a person, your client's position in the most clear and understandable way to persuade them to side with you is very important. So reading, writing, and speaking are very important. You'll do a lot of that.
Yeah. Mazen, we have a question here in the chat, and we want to know some of your favorite memories of Cerritos. And you talked a little bit about teachers and folks that were, you didn't mention them by name, but do you have mentors or folks that you would want to shout out and say, hey, this particular professor or this particular administrator, had a huge impact on you?
Yeah, I set up the Max Fryfield Scholarship, and I did that because when I started Cerritos College, I was very shy to speak in front of the public. And I remember the first time I spoke to a group of people, about 60 people, about 45 walked out, and 15 polite people stayed in and listened to me. And it was very embarrassing. And Max, no matter what time of the day, he was always there to help me to improve my speaking skills and give me feedback. So I would put together a little speech, and then I would practice it in front of him, and he would always take the time to give me feedback, and this is how I can improve the speech. Happy story is I went back to that same group to speak to them because I was running for student body president, and nobody walked out, and they all applauded for me. So there was great improvement, but always made the time to meet with me, and yeah, as well. I hope I'm not embarrassing Dr. Fran Newman, but she was a big part of my career at Cerritos College. And the one thing that I always admired about her is it didn't matter what time of the day, if I needed to meet with her, she always made time for students. And that was something that she always had said to me, that she always tries to make time for students to walk into her office in case they ever need to talk to her about any issue and all that. And she was true to her word. She always did that.
Oh, go ahead.
And Gene Blackman, he was a professor. I would always visit him in his office, always made time for me. And I mean, those are just 3 professors. I can tell you board members that I was sat on the board of trustees. The student body president would serve also as a member of the board of trustees, but I could call any of the board members and share the student perspective on any of the issues at Cerritos College, and they would always take my phone call. And that's really, it's Cerritos College is not just an educational institution, but it has its own culture, and it's a culture of concern and caring and encouragement. And that's what I found at Cerritos College.
Isn't it amazing how Cerritos and as big as a college as it is, because it's big, we're not a small college of a couple thousand students, but you have 20,000 plus or so, give or take, any given year. But yet there's a way that they make it feel so small, right? Where it's so big, you would think, when would a professor even have time? But the professors there really, and when we've talked to alums time and time again, they say the same thing you're saying. It's just amazing to hear that they take the time.
Yeah, very true.
So switching gears a little bit, and we want to pick your brain that we have you here, because every alumna or alumnus that we have has some great knowledge to share, and yours is in real estate. Let's face it. And so that's where you've been. You've been in real estate now since 2013, and as we know, it's been some crazy times, to say the least, very unprecedented times in terms of selling and purchasing of property and homes, of course, ever since the pandemic and what we've seen. And anyone that knows anyone that's been trying to purchase a place, prices have gone up a little bit, just a tad, and it's a lot more competitive nowadays than it is for someone. And so just to get things going, right now, what is your biggest concern for what you see about the current real estate market? Does something concern you about what we've seen in the last 12 to 18 months?
Well, yes, it does. And, the one thing I try to educate my clients is to make sure that they're not in a position where they're, house rich and cash poor. And it's very tempting when a lender tells you that you're qualified for a certain amount, but a lender makes that decision based on a piece of paper. It's not really telling. Only you know what your budget looks like and what your dreams and things that you're saving for, college education. And with the rise in housing prices, the one concern that I have is people buying homes that maybe they may be getting in over their heads. And although things are different than it was in 2008, where we had more of a hard landing after the market crash because too many loans were given to too many people who may not have qualified, This time lenders are a little bit more judicious with the loans that they are giving out. And they scrutinize you a lot more because there's more liability involved to these lenders after the crash of '08. Excuse me. Um, but nevertheless, I always try to educate my clients about buying a home that they can afford and that they could live in comfortably for the next 30 years and not compromise those other enjoyments in life like traveling and family and all that, because it would be terrible. But with real estate, there are so many moving parts involved in real estate, and you never know what may affect the entire industry. I mean, if there's a shift in interest rates, you see that all of a sudden there's a decrease in loan applications, home purchasings, and Ryder trucks, and Home Depot, and Bed Bath and Beyond. It's like everything is so intricate, and one thing can affect many other things. But and it's so hard to predict sometimes. I mean, look, we have COVID-19, we have the eviction moratoriums. Anything can affect real estate, and I would say that would be and the forbearances. That's another thing that may be a big issue in the upcoming real estate market.
And you mentioned something about what you think is really important in terms of being cash poor, right, and real estate rich, and I think that's important. And so, what is right now for someone that's maybe looking to get into their first home, or even if what is that formula for? Gosh, how much should I be spending then, Mazen? Right, in terms of how much should I have aside every month of my income that should go towards rent or go towards paying the mortgage? That where I'm not going to starve myself in other areas of my life.
Back in the old days, it was pretty much a simple formula. It was 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3 went to your housing. And today, I've seen loan debt to income ratios like 64%, or 64%
Wow.
of somebody's income was just going to housing. Anyone trying to buy a house for the very first time, it's. Everyone wants to get into that dream home, that big house, and live there. But I tell people, start off with something that you can afford, even if you have to drive out a little bit further, or even go to another state till you save enough money to buy what you want. Find something that fits within your budget. I always tell people, make a budget and think about everything that you spend money on that you love to do. For example, if it's traveling, set aside a little bit of a budget. And if you're having to compromise the enjoyments of life in purchasing a house, then you probably shouldn't be purchasing a house at the moment.
That's very good advice. And so, right now, it seems like maybe home prices are beginning. I mean, it's still pretty high up there. Are they beginning to level off? Are we seeing a level off here? And I don't want to ask you the cliche question: are we in a bubble or not? I know that's tough to always predict, but where are we right now? And I'm hearing a lot of, if you're buying a home right now, intend to be in it for at least about 6, 7 to 10 years or so, instead of buying and being able to flip it in a few years, because there could be perhaps a dip before things begin to get back up in terms of a long-term investment. Any advice with that right now for someone that is purchasing a home, and kind of where the market's going to be in terms of home prices here in Southern California?
Sure. One of the most common questions I get from all my clients is it a good time to buy? And I tell clients that really the question you should be asking yourself is it a good time to buy for you? And that's where it goes back to, making a budget and seeing what you can afford. And I've had some clients who lived in Los Angeles and who moved out to cities like Paris or Beaumont, which are a good driving distance, but they're very happy. They're still living in their home. They don't have financial insecurity. Are we in a bubble? It's really hard to predict. Like I said, back in 2008, where everyone got a loan, and then what ended up happening was when the crash happened, most of the people who got loans who probably shouldn't have had a loan, they walked away from their property, and it resulted in a very hard crash. This time, lenders are scrutinizing a little bit better in determining who qualifies for a loan or not. But are we in a bubble? I think we are in a bubble. But how, the big debate is, are we going to have a soft landing or a hard landing? And that's really hard to say. It's really hard to say.
How do you define those two, the soft landing and the hard landing, for those of us in layman terms?
Sure. You know, where if you have a shift in the economy like you did in 2008, the market just completely crashed. You saw home prices, you know, I can tell you, I purchased a house and I almost lost well over $200,000 in equity in my property. And that was just the nature. Too many people, they were just handing money out to everybody. And so you saw the crash, you saw bailouts, you saw people lost their homes, you saw a lot of homelessness during that time. That's what I consider a hard crash. More of a soft landing is where prices adjust to the realities of the market, but you don't see the homelessness and the mass foreclosures that you saw back in '08. And so when I refer to those terms, that's what I mean by a hard crash or a soft landing. But I do believe there will be an adjustment in price, in the prices. I mean, prices can only go up. I mean, the rate of price increase has just, I mean, it's gone up. I mean, it's literally today, if somebody, I don't even refer to it as a housing market. I call it an auction market because it's whoever, if you're the highest bidder, you get the house. And that's what it's become. I mean, I've had some homes where one house had 51 offers on it. My client offered $50,000 above listing price and still did not get the house.
Yeah, wow.
That's what it's become.
No, I've had family members going through the same thing, and personally, I'm fortunate that I'm not in it right now looking for a home. That we've been in our home for a little bit, but you're right. I'm hearing about lines, right? Lines that you would hear that you would think it's a grand opening of a new restaurant. No, it's people lining up for an open house around the corner, you know. Yeah. And so it's insanity, but it's very real. And I am seeing folks just like you mentioned that are heading a little bit more east, who may not have considered maybe moving out east a little more inland into those areas. And even that's become very, very competitive as well, right? And so are we seeing an increase also of a lot of folks just coming in with cash offers as well? Is that impact?
You are. Yeah, you do see. You have foreign money coming in, purchasing assets. You also have companies like, I always get it confused, either Blackwater or BlackRock, one of the two.
BlackRock, yeah.
BlackRock, yeah. You know, these type of corporate conglomerates, hedge funds that are investing in real estate. You know, and a lot of people cannot afford homes, one, because there's a shortage of homes, and which led our governor to allow homeowners to build what they call accessory dwelling units. And that is where you can add like a little house on your property if you have the space. And that was an initiative that was done to help decrease the housing shortage. But you also have a lot of people who can't afford homes because they're straddled in debt, either consumer debt. I think you have a generation of renters, students who went into education to get their degree, only to find that, you know, jobs were not as plentiful. And so they're straddled with debt. And when that's factored into their ability to purchase homes, they're not able to purchase homes, and they become renters. And you know, usually graduation and you get a job, and usually by around your late 20s, early 30s, it's usually the time when most people venture into getting their starter home. And unfortunately, that's not the case today because of some of those circumstances.
No, you're absolutely right about that. That's become a lot more difficult. And I'm looking here to see if I have some questions in the chat. I do see someone here that asked, you know, what is your favorite part about being in real estate?
My favorite part is it really brings out, you know, as I mentioned earlier, any career that you choose has a personality component. And I actually shifted out of law because I found that although I was able to make a living in the legal field, I found that I spent a lot of time by myself researching in my office or, you know, at the library. And, you know, I was at a desk. And with real estate, I find that I move a lot, I'm very mobile. And I find myself that I'm in a position of educating clients. And I love education. I love educating clients. And that is probably one of my favorite parts. And there's a lot of interaction that you have with your clients because, you know, real estate as an agent, as a broker, you are in a position of trust, and they rely on you to be their confidant, their advisor, you know, in the direction and, you know, the types of houses. And, you know, real estate has gotten a little bit more complex now. I mean, you think of, loans, 40 years ago, you had a 30-year loan or a 20-year loan, it was fixed and you paid it. And today there's a lot of loan products today. And I'm in that position to educate my clients what I think may be the best type of loan for them for the type of goals that they're trying to accomplish in home ownership. There's many ways to take ownership title to a property, and as an advisor to them, I explain to them all the different types of ways that you can hold title to a property, because each of them have a different legal and tax ramifications. So I think that is my favorite part. I become a teacher, I become a friend, I become a confidant, and I find that many of the clients that I have helped to find homes, I'm still in contact with them and still talk to them. I will go out to eat with them. You really become their friend. I mean, you help them with their biggest purchase, and if they get their purchase and they're very happy, they will always tie that to you, and you become their friend and advisor and play many different roles.
That's awesome. What would you say, and you might have shared some of them a little bit, you give great advice about folks making sure that they affordability. What are some of the more unfortunate common mistakes that you see home buyers, maybe first-time home buyers make or so in the process, or when they're asking the wrong questions and you think, no, you really should be asking this, that you've seen? Just some helpful tips for folks, especially that are relevant right now in this market.
Yeah, home purchasing is a very emotional process, very emotional. And it is. I mean, the home is a structure where you create memories, you have birthdays, happy moments, holidays. And the most common mistake is, I always advise my clients, don't get emotionally attached to a property, because it could be problematic, especially if it is out of their budget. So, I mean, I have not had any of my clients so far lose their properties. I only had one who lost their property, but in my opinion, I thought she got a little bit in over her head with her home purchase. But again, it's not making a budget. You've got to track your money, and that mortgage is due every single month. And if you miss a payment, the banks have no problem moving swiftly to recover that payment or that house. And so, yeah, knowing what you're getting into is probably the most, not knowing what you're getting into is probably the most common mistake buyers make.
Okay. And so we'll pause for a second just to let everyone know if you have any other questions on the chat or on the Q&A section, to please drop those in for Mazen, and we're happy to read those out loud. Mazen, so I'm going to switch gears a little bit, and I'm going through your background, and I'm just finding some pretty fun stuff here. And so I have on here you had a background in bodybuilding. Tell us a little bit about that, kind of your passion for how'd you get involved in that, and we're gonna ask you for some health tips here in a sec.
Oh, sure. I don't know if you can see that trophy on the back on this side.
Yeah,
that's a trophy that I earned. I came in second place in a bodybuilding show, but more so, less the vanity and more the health that's involved in fitness. I strongly believe in health, and bodybuilding I would equate to running a marathon. It's something that is a long endurance type of field where you really have to be focused on your sleep, the way you eat. It's not just a question of just going to the gym and just doing an hour. It's something that you have to focus on every day, because the big day is coming, whether it's a marathon or it's bodybuilding. Part of my reason for getting into it was, one, I'm very goal-oriented. I thought that was a very good way to get focused on something to reclaim my health. I had put on a significant amount of weight. Part of it is because I sit a lot. During my time of when I was practicing law, I did a lot of sitting, and it's very easy to fall into the habit of just being very sedentary and eating out a lot and not cooking and all that. So I decided to get into it, and a lot of people have misconceptions about it. I mean, they see people who are all, yoked, and they say, oh, they're just a bunch of jugheads or they're vain. And it really isn't. I have to tell you, I gained a lot of respect for people who are in the bodybuilding profession, because you have to put structure in your day, and you have to plan your meals. And sometimes people will ask me, what was the most important thing to getting into shape? And people are surprised by my answer. They think I'm going to say, well, eating well, and it is a component, but the most important thing in getting fit or getting healthy, getting in shape is sleep. And I will credit sleep to being what helped me to be successful in the bodybuilding, because when your mind is tired, you find that you're more susceptible to your weaknesses and to eating, and you don't have the same energy level to go to the gym and to work out. So it was the one time during that 6 months of training, I slept at least 7 to 8 hours a day. I mean, on clock. I mean, as soon as it hit 11, I was in bed. And there were 4 days in that 6 months that I slept less than 7 or 8 hours. I slept like 3 hours, 4 hours. And I found that those were the days where my cravings for sugar and foods that I should not be eating were the strongest. It was only those 4 days.
You know, what's funny, it's interesting to hear you say that, because you hear more and more about that, but we've been living in a world, you know, for a little while now, where you see all these, you know, entrepreneurs and all these folks, you know, who push that I don't have time for sleep and I can sleep when I'm dead and you don't need to sleep. And they're doing stuff at 3 in the morning, 2 in the morning. It's almost like we've put the stigma on sleep, right? And almost put people that don't sleep on a pedestal somehow, right? And so, but it's refreshing to hear you, and I've heard other folks say, like, no, you need to get your mind right. You do need sleep for a myriad of reasons, health reasons, right? I mean, we can go on and on.
And of course, there's always going to be exceptions. There's always, you know, some people, you know, my dad used to function on 4 or 5 hours of sleep and he was fine. You know, so everyone's bodies are different, but I find for most people, and like you said, we tend to neglect sleep and we discount sleep, but it is a very big component, because it is during sleep that your body heals itself. It helps to repair muscle, repair injuries, and also to clear your mind of many of the day's happenings. It helps to clear your mind and sort out, almost like a computer. It helps to put things in proper files and all that. I mean, the studies are all out there. So,
yeah. Have you met any famous bodybuilders?
No, I've not. I've not met famous. I've met famous people, but not famous bodybuilders.
Oh, they're famous, but not
Actually,
famous bodybuilders.
I saw them. I saw them at the gym. I used to work out at Gold's Gym, and
Really,
yeah, very intimidating, because I was in a natural body show, and so competition, and some of these people were just huge, and it was intimidating. But I would always see them working out, and I'd say hello to them, and they would offer tips, if they saw me struggling. And, I saw one or two, but it was intimidating to approach them.
But I like when you mentioned that, because I think for a lot of folks to get started in bodybuilding or even working out, they get intimidated, right? It's like, I'm not going to go into a Gold's Gym. Folks are watching me. They're going to judge me if I'm not doing it right. What advice do you have for folks that are starting out and say, I want to get in there, and I really, maybe it's not full on bodybuilding, but boy, I just really want to get started, and I'm intimidated by going in there.
Well, I learned one thing. When I would go to the gym just to work out, and not necessarily bodybuilding to compete or anything like that, but just to work out, I was very conscientious, because I always thought people were looking at me. So I decided to take a course on weight training, and it was a 6-week course. And we learned how to, have the right form and position. And when I went back to the gym and I started working out, because I knew what I was doing, I realized if you look around, I used to think 95% of the people were watching me. Once I learned how to work out, I found that 95% of the people didn't know how to work out, and nobody was watching me, and nobody cared. But I would say, if you have to take there's great classes or programs that you can research online. There's fitness groups that have courses on the weekends, and they'll show you how to lift weights and get the proper form. And that's what I did. I took a 6-week weekend course. Every weekend it met. And I would say start there to make sure, because it's very important to have the proper form and the technique, because you could injure yourself with one wrong twerk of the body.
Mazen, I have on here, it looks like 91 to 92 was a great year for you, because I have you down for Cerritos College Man of the Year in 91, 92, yes. Cerritos College Student Newsmaker of the Year in 91, 92. Tell us about those 2 awards in that time in your Cerritos career. Tell us about those two awards.
It was an honor. It was an award that was voted by your peers, your fellow students, and And so to get that award was very humbling, and I was truly honored that they would find me. I mean, as you said, the college is so big. There are 25,000 students on campus approximately, and to be chosen out of all the students on campus, truly a great honor. And I was student body president at the time, so I made the news quite a bit for better or for worse.
I was going to ask you, you got newsmaker of the year, means that you did something or you said something.
Yeah, I was in the news quite a bit, and yeah, it was really humbling to be honored by your peers, because it didn't come from anybody but your fellow student body.
Well, obviously they had a ton of respect for you, like you said, and sometimes you have to push the envelope. So I'm going to press you a little bit. What was the moment you said you pushed the envelope the most while you were at Cerritos?
Push the envelope. There was, during that time, we had a state budget crisis that was happening. And we had at the time the college president, who was basically asking the campus to reorganize and to find ways to consolidate and ways to save money. And I think that's always very challenging when you ask people to make cuts in their programs, especially if they strongly believe in those programs that they support. But it was a very tough time. It was a very, one of the proposals was eliminating one session of summer school just to be able to get through this budget crisis. But it really required me to stay engaged with educating the clients, the student body. I would go around and I would, every night I would pick about 2 or 3 classes, and I would talk to the student body about some of the things that were going on, eliminating a session of summer school. We also had a bill called Proposition 98 at the time, which would have guaranteed funds to various schools, including the community colleges. So pushing to educate them to get involved on a political level, especially when it came to their education. And I also had the opportunity to speak to many of the board members to persuade them, but I found myself getting very, very active. And, I think sometimes people believe that when you're student body president, that your role is pretty much relegated to the fun and activities that Cerritos College offers. And we offer a lot of great activities on campus, but no, you really got involved in the meat and potatoes of issues on campus. And, going to various classes and speaking every night to groups and getting them riled up and involved was something that I had not previously had to do, but it was a very tough time. And, tough time comes sometimes for, you to do things that you would not typically
right.
do. On myself lobbying a lot. I was meeting with a state senator, a state assemblyman, and in the end, it proved to be very successful. We were able to maintain our summer school programs, and by doing some of those things.
Well, it sure seems like, and it seems like your peers recognize you for it. So that's amazing. So we've got about 6 minutes here left, and we're at the portion of the program where we kind of fire off questions that we get here randomly through folks. So I have a question here that was sent directly to me about, I just lost that here on my, here we go. What is the craziest thing you've heard a potential buyer, a home buyer, do to get a home in this market?
The craziest thing, when I see clients willing to offer more than what a house is worth, that is something that's, you essentially buy an asset in which you're behind the 8 ball. You're coming in with negative equity. But, again, if you need a house, you need a house. And, they seize the moment. But to me, that's very crazy. But the house, I get it. I would say that would probably be one of the craziest things I've seen people do, offer $50,000 and $75,000 above the listing price for the house.
Okay, wow. Yeah, I get it. Well, once again, if you have any other questions, feel free to put those in the chat here as we're beginning to wrap up. A couple of things here. Mazen, worked for the office of President Ronald Reagan back at some point, and when you were involved in government. And what was that like?
It was an amazing experience. He was at this point a former president, but it was an amazing experience because, despite being a former president, I mean, he still had uh, people who would visit him, world leaders. Um, I think the one thing that I learned from that experience was, we usually attribute these attributes of somebody who was a former president or a president. And then I got to see him for the man that he was. And, I would say for the first month I was in awe. I would just kind of stare at him and like, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. And then it got to the point where it's like, I'd walk by him and say, good morning, Mr. President. Good morning. Like he was just another human being. And I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but you learn at the end, people are people. And you saw a lot of his human qualities that everyday person on the street goes through. Because I was in the office every day, and he would pretty much come into the office every day, and they'd keep him busy with visitors and meeting with people and writing letters to the editor. They kept him pretty occupied. But yeah, it was an amazing experience, and it was part of my education. It was tied in with my political science courses, and there would be times where I would be reading my history books, and it would talk about the Soviet Union and the Cold War, and I would read about President Ronald Reagan. Then he would just walk right by me.
And there he is. There he is, right there.
He's right there. So yeah, it was a great experience. I learned a lot. And
anything funny or anything crazy that you would say, a story you can share that you learned about the president, or something you saw, you go, boy, this was kind of funny, or this was interesting.
Yeah, he had a great sense of humor. And I don't know. Yeah, I see Fran Newman is on. I actually invited Dr. Newman to visit with him with a few other people from Cerritos College, and she had the chance to meet President Reagan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but I think she's got a nice photograph in her home with the president. But you find what a great sense of humor he had, and I had the chance to eat with him and watch television with him one time because it was a small office.
He loves sports, right?
Yeah, he loved sports. He loved to golf. And sometimes he couldn't wait to go golfing. Like he would constantly keep looking at the time, and we would keep him occupied till 12 o'clock because he was on a pretty set schedule. But he had a wonderful sense of humor, just a very genuine man, and just a great experience.
Well, Mazen, you make us really proud as an alum of Cerritos. You had some amazing experiences over the last several years. It's always neat, I'm sure. And if there's students that'll be listening or watching to this at some point, I'm sure it's very inspirational to see your journey from Cerritos and leading you on to all these different experiences where you're working for, an office of a president, and you're doing different things and you're getting involved. You've traveled all over the world. And so it's neat to see that you've set a nice, well-rounded life and career. And so I congratulate you for that, and for setting a really, a good bar, I think, for all of our current students, recent alums, folks that are trying to find, where they want to do, what they want to do with their careers, and to see, I think, where you've gone and the different things you've done. As I always say, careers are not always linear. And I think you've kept an open mind as to, where you want to go and what's gotten you where you are. So, yeah.
I say, Jason, I really accredit that to Cerritos College. I attribute that to Cerritos College because, as a teenager, you go to school, you're not certain about the direction. And it wasn't just about career choices. It was about finding my direction and finding out who I was and building my confidence. And, Cerritos College had all the programs that were there, and it's what you make of the opportunity. The opportunities are all there on campus. And that's why I continue to maintain my connection to Cerritos College, because it has given me so much. And I truly believe when one has been given, they're more likely to give back. And that's why I continue my connection with Cerritos College. And I always will. I'll always be grateful for what it's done for me.
I think that's a perfect way to end tonight. Mazen, thank you so much for spending this time with us this evening. This was great.
And a privilege. Thank you so much. And to all the attendees, thank you very much for also taking your time to be here as well. Thank you for inviting me to ask me to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Eventually, of course, this will be on YouTube. So if you want to go back to watch that, follow the foundation on Instagram and on social media, and I'm sure you get our emails, so you'll get information about that and some of the future alumni conversations and other chats that we have. and other events going on. So that's my elevator pitch there for the foundation and for the group. Make sure you stay tuned to all the cool things going on. So with that, I want to wish everyone a very good evening and a great weekend ahead. Stay cool out there. We'll see you next time. Thank you, Mazen, again.
Thank you. Pleasure. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.